Meet our protagonist for today, the Goblin Slayer, a socially adept man whose hobby is to slay goblins all day. Despite his awful sense of fashion and weird-smelling fragrance, you can't deny his goblin-slaying passion. And then here's a cute waifu, the priestess. With her rosy cheeks and gentle demeanor, she decided to register in a guild to become an official adventurer. Suddenly, she was approached by some rookie adventurer asking her if she could join their party. The party informed her that they would be going on a goblin slaying quest, and they would need a priestess for that mission. The lady at the counter tried to warn these delusional kids, but they ignored her. Joined by a party of fellow adventurers, including a fighter, a wizard, and a rookie warrior, the young girl sets out on her quest with optimism and excitement. However, her enthusiasm quickly turns to terror when they encounter the goblins in a dark, dank cave. The goblins prove to be more cunning and ruthless than they anticipated, ambushing the party and catching them off guard. In the chaos of battle, the priestess witnesses the brutal reality of goblin encounters. Her companions are quickly overwhelmed by the goblins' sheer numbers and ferocity, and one by one they fall in gruesome fashion. She tried her best to escape the dungeon along with the wizard who was already on her wit's end. Despite her efforts, the goblins managed to track them down. The she finds herself paralyzed with fear, facing imminent death at the hands of the goblins. Just when all hope seems lost, a mysterious figure clad in dark armor appears, wielding a sword with deadly precision. It was none other than the goblin-obsessed Mr. Goblin Slayer. With swift and ruthless efficiency, he dispatches the goblins, saving her from certain death. In the aftermath of the battle, the young priestess is left shaken and traumatized by the experience. She witnesses firsthand the brutality of goblin encounters and the harsh realities of life as an adventurer. However, that fear only made her feel even more motivated to become an adventurer. She reflects on her encounter with Mr. Goblin Slayer, recognizing his strength and determination. Thus, the stage is set for the unlikely partnership between the epitome of cuteness priestess and the socially adept Goblin Slayer. The next day, we catch a glimpse of a farm girl beholding an undeniable hotness. It turns out that she is a depicted childhood friend of the Goblin Slayer. The cowgirl has an upcoming delivery to the guild, so she and the Goblin Slayer decide to go together. Inside the guild, everyone's attention was on our hero, as he is notorious for only accepting goblin-slaying quests despite having elite adventurer skills. Later, the guild girl started posting the available quest. Everyone started hoarding at the bulletin board. However, the Goblin Slayer was just chilling like a villain in the corner. The young priestess then shows up informing him that she's now mentally ready to take go on a quest with him. The two of them immediately went into the counter to take a goblin slaying hunt. The guild lady then informs them that another group of rookie adventurers took a goblin quest. That alarmed our cute waifu as she had a first-hand experience of the ruthlessness of the goblins. The two of them immediately depart, ready to take down more annoying goblins. During their quest, a brief flashback reveals Mr. Goblin Slayer's tragic past, witnessing goblins slaughter his family and friends, fueling his lifelong vendetta against them. So he made a solemn vow to himself, a vow forged in the fires of grief and rage, that he would exact revenge upon the goblins by removing their very existence from the world. With a flaming arrow, he ignites the hideout, causing chaos among the goblins. Just when the goblins thought they were safe, the priestess swiftly traps them with her barrier skill, ensuring none will be able to escape. Mr. Goblin Slayer enjoys the sight as the flames consume the hideout and the goblins meet their fiery demise. Meanwhile, a party of oddfellows is garnering the attention of the villagers as they ask where they could meet the Goblin Slayer. The next morning heralded a sense of anticipation as a trio of adventurers, consisting of an elf, lizard man, and dwarf, embarked on a mission to seek the aid of none other than Mr. Goblin Slayer. Their determination resulted in making their way to the guild. Upon arrival, they wasted no time and approached the counter lady, requesting a meeting with the renowned Goblin Slayer. Not long after that, the guild doors swung open, revealing our hero, accompanied by the priestess, coinciding perfectly with the party's inquiry. The party immediately guided him to a private meeting room, leaving her to wait alone. As she stood there, she found herself approached by young adventurers seeking her companionship. However, their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a witch with a generous bosom, regaling her with tales of the Goblin Slayer's obsession with goblin slaying quest and his powerful scrolls. Meanwhile, in the meeting room, our hero was confronted by the party's straightforward request about assisting them in their objective to stop the Demon King. However, he refuses because his only focus is goblin quests and nothing more. However, the lizard man proposes to him that he would only tackle the goblin obstacle in their path, which piqued Goblin Slayer's interest. He immediately took action, requesting a map of the goblin's hideout. With the map in hand, he wasted no time in setting out to fulfill the quest. As he is about to head out, the patiently waiting priestess requests to let her join the quest, which he accepts without hesitation. As night fell, the party engaged in a heartfelt conversation about their motivations for adventuring. The Goblin Slayer's nerdy way of sharing his knowledge about goblins, despite the presence of two charming women by his side. The information became very insightful. At dawn, they arrived at their destination, prepared to confront the goblin threat head-on. With the precise accuracy of the elf's bow, they swiftly dispatched their adversaries, marking the beginning of yet another goblin hunt for Mr. Goblin Slayer and his companions. As usual, our hero proceeded with his meticulous preparation to extract the blood of the goblins to avoid detection. Though the beautiful elf hesitated, she had little choice but to comply with his nauseating methods. With their preparations complete, the party ventured deeper into the ruins, eager to continue their quest. The old dwarf managed to deduce the goblin's hideout just by simply looking at the surroundings. However, Goblin Slayer felt a sense of unease and suggested an alternate route instead. His intuition proved correct when they stumbled upon an elf prisoner amidst the goblin's waste heap. Seeing the poor prisoner in her horrible situation reminds the priestess of her debut quest, where she is in a deep state of fear as she is about to be hunted down by the goblins. Approaching cautiously, our hero discovered a goblin lurking behind the prisoner, prompting him to swiftly dispatch the threat. A very emotional Miss High Elf vowed to herself that she would avenge her fellow elf and would complete the quest no matter what. Their journey led them to the heart of the goblin's nest, where the old dwarf used his sleeping spell, and the priestess used her silence spell to enable them to exterminate the goblins stealthily. Everything is going well. However, their victory was short-lived as they encountered an orc, the leader of the goblins, distinguished by its ability to communicate in a language. It was revealed that the ugly orc is one of the generals of the Demon King. The party struggled against the ogre's strength and deadly raging fire magic, resulting in them reaching their breaking point. As the orc is about to deal the finishing blow, the Goblin Slayer uses one of his powerful scrolls, which catches the orc off guard. Before he finishes off the ogre, he mocks him by stating that the goblins are more worthy as opponents compared to him. With that, the party has successfully achieved its mission. Inside the carriage, the young elf can't help but stare at Mr. Goblin Slayer, which made every elf simps jealous. As our hero went about his morning routine of tending the fences, the cowgirl approached him, expressing her concern about his well-being. In his typical goblin-obsessed manner, he dismisses her worries, citing the ever-present threat of goblin attacks. The cowgirl recounted how he had collapsed upon returning from their previous quest. But Goblin Slayer brushes it off, insisting that there was no time for rest when goblins might be lurking nearby. Together, they ventured into town to deliver supplies, where they encountered the odd party. While her heart was fluttering at the sight of the Goblin Slayer, the simping elf hinted at a future collaboration in exploring ruins, which he cautiously agreed to consider. At the guild, a hapless young adventurer sought assistance after misplacing his weapon on a quest. The witch with a ballistic figure gave the poor kid a candle that could help him track his weapon. On the other hand, this cute chick who is fresh off her promotion showered our hero with appreciation, before trotting off to inform her mother about her achievement. Meanwhile, the young adventurer is still in a pinch as he needs a weapon to retrieve his weapon. So he decided to ask the notorious Goblin Slayer, as he is also known for his adventurous knowledge. He advises the young kid to use a club, stating that it would be a very versatile weapon when entering the sewers. And with that, the young adventurer, along with her companion, set off to retrieve his weapon with nothing but a candle, and a club combined with a healthy dose of skepticism. Despite the looks of the shady candle, it indeed helped him track down his weapon. He saw his weapon being guarded by a horde of giant cockroaches, so they immediately commenced a tactical retreat. But after hours of playing cat and mouse games, he decided to man up, and then he managed to retrieve his weapon. Amidst these events, Goblin Slayer was called upon to observe a promotion exam, witnessing a rookie's demotion back to porcelain rank. The embittered rookie harbored resentment toward the guild girl, so he tried to assault her. However, our brave hero stops him, unknowingly rizzing the guild girl in the process. As he left, the counter lady's partner teasingly hinted at a budding romance between her and Mr. Goblin Slayer, only for their conversation to be interrupted by Mr. Slayer's return with a letter summoning him from a distant land. With the promise of new adventures on the horizon, Mr. Goblin Slayer's journey continued, his resolve unyielding in the face of whatever challenges lay ahead. A story spreads inside the guild, implying that the hero has beaten the Demon Lord. While everyone was busy celebrating the fall of the Demon Lord, our protagonist approaches his companion, telling them that it's time for another goblin hunt located at Watertown. The following day, Goblin Slayer and the rest of the party reached their destination. They visited the Temple of Law, where they were scheduled to meet their client. Mr. Slayer mentioned that their client was the Sword Maiden, an archbishop of the Supreme God. This gorgeous Sword Maiden informed them about an acolyte girl who had been murdered while running an errand, with goblins suspected as the culprits. Dissatisfied with the army's ineffectiveness, the Sword Maiden sought Goblin Slayer's assistance, which he and his crew readily accepted. Their plan was to explore the sewers, so they asked the Sword Maiden for guidance on the best route. Once equipped with the necessary information, they set out. Their deduction proved correct, as they discovered that the goblins were indeed using the sewers as their base of operations. During the encounter, they faced a sudden barrage of arrows from a group of goblins, but the priestess's quick use of her barrier skill protected them. Taking advantage of the distraction, Goblin Slayer deployed a pepper bomb, disabling the goblins' ability to retaliate. Because of the commotion, they found themselves confronted by a giant alligator and hastily retreated. Despite their efforts to escape, the alligator pursued them relentlessly. Amidst the chaos, Miss High Elf sensed the approach of another horde of goblins, but our hero remained composed, revealing his plan to use the goblins as bait for the alligator. This clever strategy allowed them to evade the creature's grasp and make their way to safety. Upon resurfacing, Goblin Slayer was puzzled by the sight of goblins using a boat, adding another layer of intrigue to their already eventful adventure. After their quest, the priestess and Sword Maiden decided to unwind in a hot bath together. As they relaxed, the young adventurer couldn't resist sneaking peeks at the battle-scarred canvas that was on Sword Maiden's body, like a kid trying not to stare at a particularly fascinating painting in a museum. Sword Maiden revealed they were mementos from a past quest gone awry, and she couldn't shake her concern for the fate of Mr. Goblin Slayer. In the town's guild, our hero and the young elf searched for quests, but found none involving giant rats, despite the town's notorious sewer system. Undeterred, they ventured back into the dark tunnels, this time accompanied by a canary with a keen nose for poison detection. Their exploration took a dangerous turn when they stumbled upon a trap, unleashing a cloud of poison gas. Quick thinking and preparedness with masks saved them from disaster. However, their respite was short-lived as they were ambushed by a horde of goblins, led by a formidable goblin champion. In the ensuing chaos, the young girl's protective barrier faltered, leaving her vulnerable to the champion's vicious attack. Seeing his comrade in danger, our hero sprang into action, rallying the group to fend off the goblin onslaught. The champion landed a clean blow to the Goblin Slayer, resulting in him losing consciousness. The goblin champion then picks up the priestess and bites her arm. Seeing the horrible sight of Goblin's ruthlessness, Goblin Slayer stood up ready to save his companions from imminent danger. He saw strands of human hair on the ground, which he used to strangle the goblin champion. He then struck the goblin champion's eye, resulting in the goblin trembling from fear. Because of that, the goblins retreated. As the dust settled, the group converged around the priestess. As the little girl and Goblin Slayer talked, he suddenly collapsed from his injuries. We're then transported back in time to a young Goblin Slayer consumed by vengeance, driven to seek retribution for his late sister at any cost. Just as we catch a glimpse of his mentor, Mr. Slayer awakens abruptly from his reverie. To his surprise, he finds himself unclothed, with the priestess sleeping naked beside him. Sword Maiden arrives, checking on their condition. It's revealed that he has been resurrected miraculously, a feat achieved by sharing a bed with a virgin, who is the priestess. Sword Maiden shares her own harrowing experience with goblins, leaving her traumatized and unable to confront them despite her role as a sword maiden. The young priestess woke up startled, as the Goblin Slayer might have seen her beautiful figure. Ever the smooth operator, he reassures her, jesting about her lack of scars. That is a certified goblin nerd Riz. The party then breaks for a meal, having not eaten since their ordeal. Following dinner, the trios resolve to return to the sewers for inspection. In the meantime, they advise the priestess and Goblin Slayer to tend to their equipment, prompting a visit to the local blacksmith. Exiting the shop, he and the young girl indulge in an impromptu ice cream date, their conversation inevitably circling back to goblin-related matters. Their moment is interrupted by the arrival of the witch and warlord, delivering a parcel at Goblin Slayer's request. The following day, the party returns to the sewers, encountering the one-eyed creature from their prior scouting. Armed with a plan involving gunpowder obtained from the parcel, Mr. Goblin Slayer orchestrates a fiery showdown, culminating in the defeat of the creature and the discovery of a protected mirror within the chamber. When the priestess made contact with the mirror, they witnessed a gathering horde of goblins apparently plotting something sinister. The mirror continued to reveal more, displaying the very boat the goblins had utilized recently. This led them to deduce that the mirror was an ancient artifact with the power to conjure a portal about the past. The previous horde then came back to finish off our heroes. The champion breached the room, prompting Goblin Slayer to continue the ongoing duel. He seized the moment to draw the attention of the goblin horde towards the champion, hoping for a bit of friendly fire chaos. Meanwhile, Lizardman and the young girl worked diligently to dislodge the mirror as instructed by our brave hero. Once the mirror was removed, the young girl employed a dazzling light spell, momentarily stunning the goblins, while the old dwarf unleashed his rock tomb spell, finishing the horde once and for all. Afterward, Goblin Slayer caught up with the Sword Maiden. He didn't beat around the bush, telling her straight out that he had his doubts about her, feeling like she was in on everything from the get-go. To his surprise, Miss Sword Maiden owned up to it, admitting that she had her own agenda all along, to make people see just how awful goblins truly are. Before our hero left, he unconsciously rizzed someone yet again. He told her that he would help her in slaying goblins even in her dreams. The following morning, they set off on their journey back to the city. While riding in the carriage, Miss High Elf expressed her relief at successfully completing the quest. In contrast, Lizard Man felt a pang of regret over the magic mirror, though he remained thankful that they all made it through the quest unscathed. Goblin Slayer then confided in the priestess, sharing his desire to indulge in ice cream once they returned home. While mending the fence as he usually did, our hero was greeted by the cowgirl, who invited him to join her for breakfast. Her uncle mentioned the news of the heroine's victory over the demon lord, suggesting a halt in monster activity, but he countered that goblins never took a break. After breakfast, Goblin Slayer and the cowgirl set off for the city for a delivery. Following the delivery, he made his way to the guild, where the warlord commended his physique, unaware of his true identity as the Goblin Slayer due to him not wearing his usual fashion sense. The witch with a nice rack informed him of the absence of quests, prompting him to visit the local blacksmith to inspect his armor. The blacksmith provided a replacement, good as new. On his way back to the guild, he observed a group of adventurers training the rookies, catching the attention of a female knight from the party who approached him. She mentioned the rumor of his near-death experience in Watertown, which he confirmed. Inside the guild, Goblin Slayer and Anna exchanges concern for each other's well-being. Later that night, Miss High Elf and the old dwarf engaged in a drinking contest. Meanwhile, outside, Goblin Slayer and Cowgirl shared a heartfelt conversation under the moonlight. He expressed his thoughts on their future together, making the Cowgirl offer him a comforting lap pillow, urging him to take his time and not rush forward. The next morning, as Cowgirl prepares for breakfast, she is startled to see our hero, who urgently warns her to flee as far as possible. Confused, his childhood friend asked why, and he explained that he had spotted numerous goblin footprints during his usual morning rounds. What's more, he deduced from the tracks that the goblins were led by none other than a goblin lord, the most dangerous of their kind. With over 100,000 goblins poised to attack imminently, they had no time to seek aid from the capital. Trembling with fear, the Cowgirl listened as he expressed his frustration on his inability to confront the goblins on the of need. He pleaded with the Cowgirl to flee, unwilling to lose yet another precious person. Despite his insistence, she refused to leave, implicating that abandoning him was not an option. At the guild, Mr. Goblin Slayer approached the warlord, shocking all adventurers as he requested assistance, which was a first for him. Informing them of the impending Goblin Lord attack, he offered everything he possessed as a reward for their aid, including his life. Recognizing his earnestness, the warlord agreed to help, along with everyone in the guild. At dusk, the fierce battle between the proud adventurers and the nasty goblins loomed. The Goblin Lord rallied its army, prompting the adventurers to counter with strategy and skill. With the help of the old dwarf and the witch, they thwarted the goblins' advances, rescuing their comrades and repelling the initial assault. However, the Goblin Lord escalated the conflict, sending hobgoblins and champions to finish them off. Despite the rookies' fear, the veterans rallied. A few minutes after, the Goblin Lord was already retreating. He seems to be running from certain someone. It was revealed that the person who chases him is none other than International Rizzler, Goblin Slayer. The Goblin Lord tried to retaliate, but our hero parried it with ease. He skillfully struck the Goblin Lord's face, enraging it enough which sent him flying. Undeterred, he quickly rose to his feet, ready to take another round. Meanwhile, at the village, the adventurers were faring well, managing to dispatch most of the goblins. However, the veteran fighters faced a tougher challenge against the Goblin Champion and the Hobgoblins. Despite the struggle, the two knights exhibited remarkable teamwork, eliminating one of the champions. The warlord engaged in a duel with the other Goblin Champion, impressing onlookers with his tenacity. Seizing an opportune moment, he delivered a fatal blow, defeating the second champion. Meanwhile, the Goblin Lord relentlessly attacked Mr. Slayer, who refused to stay down. Infuriated by his resilience, the Goblin Lord unleashed its most powerful strike, incapacitating him. Just as it prepared to deliver the final blow, the priestess used her constrict spell which immobilized it, allowing our protagonist to retaliate. The Goblin Lord begged for mercy, but she remained wary, knowing better than to trust goblins. With a swift motion, Mr. Slayer ended the Goblin Lord's life. Later on, the severely injured Goblin Slayer was healed by the priestess, who broke down in tears at the thought of losing him. Due to Goblin Slayer's wrathful nature, he told her that he would never leave her. Later, they celebrated their success at the guild. Our hero discreetly gifted the young girl the gold coin he received. She asked him why he did not ask for help earlier. He replied that he thought that he was all alone in this world, unknowingly that the guild treated him as one of their family members. Later, the embarrassed priestess mustered the courage to ask King Rizzler to remove his helmet, revealing his handsome face and causing her cheeks to flush and the guild chicks to flock. The gorgeous elf saw Goblin Slayer's aesthetic face, announcing to everyone his unmasked face, much to the delight of the gathered adventurers, particularly the women who were surprised by his attractiveness. Proud of his journey, he couldn't help but smile at his newfound acceptance. Now that the Rizzler Goblin Slayer finally understood that there are people who love him, what adventures do you think wait for him and his companions? Will their unity and determination be enough to overcome the trials that await them? Or will new challenges test their resolve in unexpected ways? That's why you need to tune it for the next recap.